All right. Hello, everybody. We at the USAEL are excited to kick off today's edition of Careers in Esports.
I am excited to say that this is episode 12 in our recurring series that aims to provide students, educators, and esports enthusiasts with a unique opportunity to explore a variety of jobs and career pathways in esports.
That's right. And you all should know the deal by now. Every month, we talk to a different expert from the world of esports and gaming. The roster includes professional players, coaches, game developers, tournament organizers, and others to give our listeners firsthand insights and expert advice on pursuing a career in the gaming industry.
Our guest list is full of industry veterans stemming from companies and organizations that have established a significant presence in the space, with Blizzard Entertainment, Riot Games, and the NFL, just to name a few.
But as usual, let's first begin with some introductions. I'm Rich Conti.
And I'm Peter Poliglov.
And we're your recurring hosts for the Careers in Esports podcast.
Rich, are you excited to introduce our next guest?
You know it, Peter. And today we actually have the honor of talking to a football legend who's now making a name for himself in esports and education as well. So without further ado, it's my privilege to introduce our audience, Ahman Green, all-pro running back, podcast host, gamer, and educator. Ahman, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, Richie, Peter, thanks for having me.
Some key moments from Ahman's career include playing 12 seasons in the NFL, 4 consecutive Pro Bowl picks, 2-time All-Pro status, Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame induction, hosting Ahman Green's Gamers Lounge, and serving as the Director of Esports, aka head coach at University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Ahman, do you prefer head coach or director of esports?
Kind of both, because I'm definitely directing, managing the students, the players in their programs in terms of the games, and they're practicing, keeping on top of their grades and making sure they're all eligible there, and just making sure the team managers are communicating with me and Ryan Tan, who's boots on the ground right now in Lincoln, to make sure everything goes smoothly for between practices and the students and players competition. Yep. So I'm good with that. Yeah.
That's great. And speaking of esports and gaming, let's go ahead and jump right into our first question.
Yeah.
What role has gaming played in your life? Where did it start and how did it evolve?
Oh man, it started when I was young. I was between ages 5 to 8 years old. And my dad, he at the time, we were living in California, Southern California, and he worked at an aviation place called Northrop Aviation, pretty prominent company that works on airplanes and aeronautics and stuff like that, even stuff with the space shuttles going up into outer space. And one day he brought home what you have on the screen, that Apple II PC, almost identical to that, maybe a little bit bigger. But it kind of is big to me because I was little anyway, a little guy. So that size, and he had to repair it. And I watched him repair it with his soldering iron and some black electrical tape and some other items that helped him fix it. And then he said, "Hey, you want to mess around with it?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "I'll show you how to turn it on and show you how to use this thing called the mouse. And here's the keyboard. You could flick around to the little icons and select pick one when you're ready to, play that game or open that app at the time." And so I ended up playing, he had Carmen Sandiego and Oregon Trail on the computer. And so I ended up selecting those, played just a few minutes of each, and then said that it's working. He said, "Good, didn't shut down or nothing like that." He's like, "No, it did not." So got that. And so that was it. I just got my first small lesson in basic IT of turning on a PC, moving, working on the keyboard, moving the mouse around a little bit and selecting an application and going into it. And so then I was pretty much hooked. And not too long after that, my dad brought home a ColecoVision. We were playing Zaxxon and Donkey Kong. I'll say, well, I was playing it most of the time. And then from there, it just continued to come in, electronics kept coming into the house. It was, I was the first on the block in my neighborhood to have the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I would be the go-to house on the weekends. If it wasn't sunny outside, we weren't playing football or playing pickup basketball or baseball out in the neighborhood, Everybody would come over my house to either play 10-yard fight, try to do couch co-op on the Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, or 3. And it just was something that I was just like, man, this is the stuff in terms of the games, the system is fun. The graphics at that time was like amazing to us. We didn't know any better compared to now. And it was another way I could connect with my friends in my neighborhood, because a lot of my neighborhood was a busy neighborhood. We had a lot of kids. We were all the same age, and we were always outside, either riding our bikes, playing football, baseball, and basketball. But then sometimes we were like, you know what, let's go inside and play some video games. And so we had that type of activity that was added to our list once the Nintendo and then Sega Genesis came into our lives.
Ahman, I have to ask, did you play any of the Madden games growing up?
100%. No, yeah, I say so. Madden has been in my life since, I think the first year was 1988 when it first hit. And so I was first generation, Gen 1 Madden player. And I got into it right away because I was a football fan, obviously. And I had my team picked out. I was a 49ers fan, still is today. And to go in there and play the game, play with, the players that I watched on TV, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, Ronnie Lott, to name a few, was pretty cool. And then you could play with other teams, the Cowboys or the Packers or the the Bengals, whoever. So it was just learning like how the graphics was awesome. And the EA Sports putting this out, was just like, man, I'm like not thinking ahead, like what else is going to come. And then I remember then they put out the NBA game with Michael Jordan. I think it was Jordan versus Bird. That's what they call it. And it was just cool playing that. Now I'm playing basketball, and I think I played RBI as well. But with Madden, a funny little story. It was my one and only rage quit on a game. And it happened with Madden. I was playing with my 49ers, and I threw a deep ball to Jerry Rice. And I'm like, thinking that he's going to catch it. Of course, he didn't catch it. He got intercepted, and I lost the game. And so I threw the controller at the TV in my room, saying, the game is cheating. The game is cheating. And I'm screaming. I'm 88. So I'm 11-year-old Ahman screaming at the TV, throwing the controller at the TV, saying the game is cheating me. And my mom hears all this noise. She comes into the room. My mom is old school, so she kind of looks around. It's like, what is all that racket going on in here? Why are you? Because I was a quiet kid. I was the baby of 4, and I'm the last. So I'm the last out the house. So all my other brothers and sisters were already, started their families. They're on their own, got jobs and stuff like that. So I was a late arrival kid, and so playing by myself. She's like, "What is all this racket? Why are you making so much noise, and why are you screaming at the TV?" And I told her, I said, the game is cheating. I threw a pass to Jerry Rice that shouldn't have got intercepted. I'm going down all this list of excuses of why the ball shouldn't have got intercepted. And so once I got talking, she just looked at me. She looked at me. She saw the controller on the floor, and she said, well, if you break it, you buy it. And I'm like, huh? That stopped me dead in my tracks. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm 11. I only have maybe $10 in my bank account. And I don't know how much a brand new Sega Genesis controller cost. I know the system cost about $100, back then. So I was like, I don't know if I got that money. Then I'm like, okay. So that shaped me up real quick. I went to my dad's toolbox, grabbed his soldering iron and some black electrical tape, and found the screws in there that were almost broke out of the controller, and was able to piece it all back together. And it worked too. I pressed the button. I was like, oh, thank God. And so from that moment on, my whole lesson was learned. I was like, I'm not gonna throw the controller, because I almost had to buy a new one on my own, which I don't have the money, and my mom and dad weren't going to buy me another one. So I'm like, okay, lesson 1 right there. I'm not going to blame the game. I got to try to beat the game. I got to outthink the game, and so I got to adjust and learn that stuff. So 2 lessons right there in my short childhood of playing video games, and just as much as I learned in traditional sports, because I was playing at that time 11. I had played football. Flag football since I was 6, and then tackle football started when I was 8. And just the year before that, I had started playing baseball at age 10. So I knew what I was doing wasn't quite right. But then also learning that I might have to pay for a new controller, that definitely kind of sealed the deal, understanding, okay, I can't rage quit. I can't be mad at something that is out of my control.
Thank you for sharing that. And following up on the idea of lessons learned, are there any other lessons or skills that you picked up in gaming that has applied in traditional sports or vice versa?
Yeah, I would say really like game planning, really thinking ahead. I've played a lot of games from RPGs to shooters to fighting games to RTSs like Dota and League of Legends. And so something that I found out with, me and my assistant or, now director helps out at Nebraska, Ryan Tan. We're sitting there one day about a year ago, or actually, no, earlier this year. And he's like, you know what? Madden is an RTS. You could put that in the category. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, really? So he said, let's talk about this. I said, yeah. He said, don't you, in Madden, obviously you think of your game plan or what team you want to use. You pick your team off the players that are on the team. You go with their playbook, or you could pick another playbook from another team, offensive playbook and defensive playbook. I say, yep. He says, so now switch over to League of Legends. You have a roster of 5 champions, and you got to find one that you're good with. And then obviously choosing the right items along the way as every time stamp comes up where you got to go kill the Drake, and you got to go kill the dragon. You got to knock down this tower here and knock down that tower there to get to the other side. You got to make sure the jungler is doing his job and everybody else is collecting gold, because if you have enough gold, you got a chance to buy the items and most likely be the victor at the end. And so you still, are thinking of what the other team is doing, what play am I going to play next, or what step I'm going to do next, because you got to stay a step ahead of the other team. Just like in Madden, you got to say, okay, I'm going to run this formation to make him think I'm passing the ball, but it's actually going to be a run play, and vice versa. So I was like, you know what? You're right. He said, because you got to you want to predetermine kind of where you want to go to try to get to the end zone. And that's how it's league. You got to predetermine, you got to figure out the game plan for you and your team, how they're going to get to the nexus, how and when and why, with the players and the champions they have, making sure they have the right champions that match up where the player understands who that champion is. Because if they don't know how to use that champion, they'll be buying items that will be wasteful and not be efficient at the end. So the players got to definitely learn that. And that's the same thing in Madden. Like if I'm going to pick a team that doesn't have a run game or a nice pass game, and I like to run the ball, then I'm gonna have an issue trying to, figure out what passes what passes I'm gonna throw to what receivers, things of that nature. So I'm like, oh, I was like, so it makes you think and makes you always, I say, be proactive at the same time, but also patience as well. So all those things that I just mentioned, I say, bring in a lot of stuff that I learned from physical sports that I played growing up. And then it brings in the more mental side of it, where you got to connect on the gaming side of it. And it really doesn't matter any game, but especially with RTS is what I'm talking about. It definitely hits on those topics.
It's a great comparison. And kind of jumping back, you mentioned playing, flag football since you were very young, but what kind of led you to pursue a career in sports? What ultimately led to that decision?
Oh man, it was me as a kid realizing that I learned so fast, right? And I'm not saying one thing I learned, and my parents brought it up to me, and my wife too, and now my brothers, they all said it since I was a kid. They just like, Ahman, you process things so differently and fast that, it doesn't, sometimes people don't realize how smart you are, and like the old adage years ago was like, everybody would say the phrase like to describe an athlete, a dumb jock. And my wife was like, no, Ahman is far from dumb, because between the playbook that we had, which was an actual book of paper pages, and it was about this thick, and it was from our normal installation to then our individual game plan for a certain team that runs a certain defense installation. So we got to process all that to realize, okay, even though we work on this game plan, it might get just thrown down the toilet because this defense comes out in a whole nother personnel and scheme. And it's like, oh man, so we can't even, what we practiced all week, we thought what they were going to do this, and now they're doing something completely different. So we got to adjust on the run. And I would say for me, knowing that type of stuff in terms of getting, me as a kid learning football, learning baseball, learning basketball. So I learned to process that physically. And so I had one coach, he trained me in track, and not track, but he trained me in my combine training right before I got to the NFL draft. And he said, man, you're like a physical Einstein. You're like a savant. Like physically, if I throw anything at you physically, you're going to master it. And so even though esports is only like 10% physical, it's all hands or our fingers and our forearms and our upper body sitting in the chair, and then our brain, of course. And so I've learned how to kind of in the superhero sense, process it fast and then copycat it to where I understand it from the world I was. So I know how to take football and the definition behind football, the mechanics of football, the planning of football, and then throw it into League of Legends like I just described, or throw it into NBA 2K or Dota. So any electronic game. So I learned how to find out what is the actual game strategy to win in this game, because that's the first thing I figured out in football. One thing was I could be physical. If I'm a physical running back, then a lot of guys won't want to tackle me. And so that will go in their brain first play of the game. If I'm hitting them real hard, that might send a message to that player, like, man, I got to do this for an hour and a half, 2 hours with this guy. I don't know if I'm going to do this. And the same thing in, like, for example, Call of Duty, if you're playing against a good team and that good team is already predetermined or already have planned out where they're going to post up somebody on a map, and that person is the best sniper and you can't find them, and they have good side of view of where your players are, and you put that player there every match, and right away he kills the first 5 players that comes across his scope and doesn't miss, then you're sending a message to the other team like, man, we can't go on the right side of the map. They got a sniper over there that's just clearing out everything. And so we gotta replan what we want to do. And so then that puts the players on edge, because they're like, oh man, we're about to lose this game. We don't know where we're going to go. It's hard over that area. So it's just a matter of, figuring out things. And I think that's what the part I love once I got older and starting to play, more football. We're at the higher level, and baseball too, especially, I played baseball too. I know I'm kind of bouncing all over here, but baseball, a thinking game, where I remember my first time playing Little League baseball. One of my coaches was actually, he pitched in the Negro leagues. And so I'm 10 and 11 years old. And they remember in that first year, between learning how to hit a curveball, but then also learning how to steal bases, manufacturing runs without hitting the ball. And my coach told me, he said, Ahman, make sure you get on base. Either I'm going to teach you how to bunt the ball so you can get on first base. And then I'll teach you how to steal all the bases and then get home without us even hitting the ball. And I'm just like, at first I'm like, how are we going to do this? And then he said, don't worry about it. If you trust me, I'll teach you how to do it. And so he taught me how to bunt. So I learned how to sacrifice bunt, being a lefty, or not sacrifice bunt, but just bunt it down in the area where I could outrun the guy going to the ball and me getting to the base. So got there. Then I remember we're still in first, we're still in second, third. And third base, obviously, that's a big deal, because that's like, if you steal third, you're scoring points. And so we basically, in baseball, it's called a squeeze play. So you're getting the pitcher you're watching the pitcher where you find out what his cadence is of pitching. How long does it take him to go into his wind up and then throw the ball? Because if you time it just right, you could get to the plate before the ball gets to the plate, and the catcher won't have time to tack you. And my coach knew I was fast enough to do that. So learning that at age 11 and 10 or 10 years old was like, man. And so then I kind of looked at everything that I did physically. I didn't really look at it as, oh man, I can't do that. I figure, okay, just give me time, I could figure it out. If I do it on my own or do it with my teammates or my coaches asking questions. And so then with esports and flipping over was the same thing. It's like, okay, I know all these games. I know Madden, I know Halo, I know Tekken, but I got to learn League of Legends. I've heard of the game for years. This is right before I got before I got hired at Lakeland University. I was like, all right, these are the games I know. I know Halo, Call of Duty, Overwatch, Madden, NBA 2K, and then Tekken and a little bit of Street Fighter. but I don't know these games over here. I don't know Dota. I know of it. I don't know League, but I know of it. But I know they're like more strategic games in the mindset of planning it out and attacking and all that. So once I figured that part out, I just became a constant learner of those games my first year. And I told the players that right away. I said, hey guys, look, these are the games I do know. These are the games I don't know. But one thing I do know that's the same in both games. There's teamwork and there's communication. So in all these games, you got to have that. If you don't have those two things, then it's going to be tough for everybody. So that's where I could get them to listen and buy into what I was letting them know about how we're going to win, how we're going to compete, and how we're going to get ready when we play all these games once the season starts. So that's kind of the process I went through of knowing that, okay, I can make it to the pro level just long as if I don't understand something, ask a question or just work hard to find what that answer is. And then so that helped me progress, from from when I was little through my high school years and then on through college and to the NFL. And every time I met a challenge, I just worked through it and figured it out. I remember in college in that the picture with me in the Nebraska uniform, it was that was my freshman year, and I was the starting running back by game 6. And I figured out in game 1 against Oklahoma State that I was ready to play at the college level. I remember playing in that game. I didn't get into the fourth quarter. The game was won. And so it was just more like scrap time to get some extra yardage or whatever. So the game had already been determined. But obviously for me, this is my first live college football activity, like action coming at me. So I got these, guys that have been in college for 4 or 5 years. They're playing against me where I'm just out of high school. And so when I got the ball and ran the ball, it just like felt like it was high school all over again. So I'm like, okay, it's not much different. It's a little faster, but now I'm adjusting on the run. And I think that's one thing, a big thing in esports is always adjusting, right? You adjusting, like I mentioned, the game, you might have a game where the whole game plan you work for to get ready for, they might do something different. The game developers, what did they do every 2.5 months to 2 weeks? They threw out new DLC for a game, and now the meta for League is completely different. And every player is like, "Oh my god!" And I told my players, "Hey, if it's your company, you could do it how you want it. But since it's out of your control, you can't worry about it. You just got to adjust to that DLC now to your character, and that's all we got to do. Because if you focus on how it's going to hurt you, then you're going to waste time in getting ready for the next game. So let's focus on getting better and learning the new DLC. So then we're already come Friday, Saturday, or whatever day we're going to compete. And so, taking those little, I say anecdotes from traditional sports, then transferring it over to esports was something and I still focus on till right now.
Absolutely. And Ahman, reflecting on your 12 years in the NFL, is there an achievement that you're most proud of?
Man, there's a lot because like I said, I grew up like a competitor in everything I do. And I had some goals that I didn't accomplish. This is who I am, right? But for the ones I was able to get to, I'm very proud of the fact that I'm the Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher. And for all the running backs that I've met and were Packer running backs before me and now after me too, that I know, I think that's probably one of my biggest accomplishments as a professional. And then after that is being voted, by my peers into the Pro Bowl and to be an all-pro running back in those 2 seasons, because that means I had complete respect from my team, from my players that I played against, from the players I played against, and to have them vote for me. And some of them I met face to face. I remember talking to Derek Brooks, who was a linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and played at Florida State. He's a Hall of Fame linebacker in terms of the NFL and the Buccaneers. And I remember we were at some event and I came up to him, I shook his hand, I said, "Hey Derek, how you doing?" He said, "Hey man," he gave me this big old hug and he said, "Man," he said, "I respected you so much, man. You were not easy to tackle." "You were so hard to tackle." And I'm like, "Hey, you were not easy to block sometimes. You were ahead of the game." And he said, "You too." So it was good that we could share that and compliment each other on how we basically took our jobs to a point where it was a game, but we knew that we had to play like this. This is our standard of a running back. This is his standard of a linebacker and what that looks like to be the best. And so you have the same thing in esports. You have players that I have players, a few players that I've coached that they have what I saw been the best Call of Duty player that I've seen at that age and level. And the good thing about it, they were humble about it. They didn't know they were that good. But when I saw them play and compete and communicate and then make their teammates better, then I was like, man, that's a good player. And I will let them know that. I'm like, hey, man, you're a good player. That's what, for one, that's why I'm making you the captain, because I need that type of leadership. And so just when you know and see it, the competition side of it, it just makes it fun. And I say it makes it motivational and inspiring all at the same time.
And it's awesome to hear examples of camaraderie like that, because it just speaks to also the emotional intelligence that comes with traditional sports, that comes with esports. But jumping ahead to our next question, can you tell us about the day-to-day as a collegiate esports coach and lecturer?
Yeah, day-to-day stuff is getting my lesson plan together, making sure I got my lesson plan and my topics ready to talk about so the students can understand it. And and then with the players, same thing, is getting the game plan together for practices. Some practices I do more hovering or sitting in the Discord. We don't have a facility yet at Nebraska, but it's coming soon. But at Lakeland, I was just sitting hover behind the players, but it's planned up my hovering. Like, okay, I'm gonna spend 10 to 15 minutes, watching the Overwatch team practice. There's some things I need to, pay attention to there, because I'm talking with my assistants or I'm talking with the team captain saying, hey, coach, can you watch, X player to make sure they're, I say, listening to the active call outs and then that they're reacting to them and covering and stuff. They're covering the air. And when my eyes say, because sometimes the player may not hear the call out and don't go exactly to the point to help out. So doing stuff like that, planning ahead, getting ready for, like, knowing that I got 4 seniors that's graduating. So between making sure they get their little, I say, walk away items. I used to do, we started doing a banquet right before I left Lakeland, and we're handing out awards to people. So making sure those seniors and the kids that participated on the roster got their awards for being on the team and got their awards for being a good player or good student in the classroom. Whoever had the best grades got an award. So continue to reinforcing all the pillars that we built as a team. We talked about accountability, we talked about respect, we talk about confidence, dedication, and execution. So making sure you reward the ones that are doing it. Like, if you have good grades, if you were the best player on the team throughout every game, so that means you're the MVP on the season, and giving them their kudos on that. So then they could say, oh man, I need to keep doing this, because it's a good feeling, to get recognized by my team, recognized by my coaches that, I was a solid player, for these reasons, and keep planning that out. And then every now and then sneak in a workout somewhere. I try to work out at least once a day. So 5-6 days a week. And it's nothing where I was doing like when I was a player. It's more lightweights, dumbbells and kettlebells, and a lot of yoga. So a lot of flexibility, stretches, stuff like that. Because as you know, sitting in a chair doesn't do the body good for 2 to 3 hours a day. So you got to get out, open your hips, get your back worked out. I mean, right today I just came from the chiropractor right before our us jumping on the Zoom call here. So it's that, and then obviously eating right throughout the day, making sure I hit my lunch and my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Drinking a lot of water. I can't drink. I've never been a big fan of drinking like the energy drinks and all that. I've tried them out every now and then. Then after I drink one or two, I'll be like, oh yeah, I definitely know this is not for me. So yeah, keeping my hydration up, keeping my nutrition solid, and making sure that the students, I'm teaching them every now and then, because they see me drinking water, and I tell them, I say, this is the reason why you should drink more water than the energy drinks, or the Gatorade or the Powerade, because of these reasons. Sugar intake, sometimes too much sugar can get you over, kind of where it can, give you an energy boost, but then you fall and crash. And then you wonder why you're so tired. It's because your body is going to get unregular, be irregular with all the sugaring coming in and out of your body. So if you just keep a constant pace of water, and then good nutrition of fruits and vegetables and other items, baked foods and stuff like that, then you could have a good nutrition program. So I have that going on too. And then at the end of the day, I try to get to myself. I try to obviously get all the emails sent out that I got to answer, any projects or stuff, call to actions I got to address. I will do that. And obviously I might try to play a couple games myself because that's it. I remember within the first year, I'm sitting there watching the players practice, and there's a little part of me like, man, I want to jump in the game with them. I want to play too. And I'm like, okay, so I kind of had to wait to, obviously wait till practice was over. Sometimes it'd be late at night, but it's like, if I just play a half hour before I go to bed, then I'm kind of happy. So, but I've learned since then to kind of work it in my day so I could get more gaming in during the day. So I'm not up late at night, where that impedes into my sleep time, and then getting sleep, making sure I'm getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, because that full day I'm waking up around between 6 and 7 a.m. and I do my first podcast of the day, and then it depends on the day, and then I get into the classes, getting my lesson plan down, what we're going to talk about, and then I might have let's say on a Wednesday, I have 2 podcasts. Well, I have my podcast, and I may stream later in the evening. So yeah, it just depends on the day where I'm always up and moving. And usually at the end of the day, my body's like telling me, okay, now it's time for sleep. And so that's kind of a habit I've learned as a kid from my parents and my brothers growing up, that if you're on the right path of what you're doing in life, then at the end of the day, you should have no problem falling asleep because you accomplished all your goals, coaching and teaching, and then playing a little video games, but then also treating my body right with good nutrition, good hydration. And then so everything, I live the full day every day of the stuff I like to do, and, helping people and doing all the other things. It just happens at the end of the day. So then I'm ready to go to sleep, and then start up again the next day.
And it's my understanding that you teach a course, Intro to Esports. Do you cover some of those healthy gaming concepts in that course, or what kind of topics do you talk about?
Yeah, we do. And so where we're at now, so we start the course off with the first month of classes always. So at fall, it's late August, it starts up, and then it goes all the way to September. The first month where I'm covering what we're talking about here, the first part of what we're talking about is the teamwork and the players working together, and teaching them, if they don't know how to work with another person, how to do that. And so we're going through that process. I'm teaching them about empathy, respect, accountability, dedication, confidence, and what all that looks like. Because people, like, the biggest one I would say definitely is confidence. A lot of people, they have a different view of confidence. Like, confidence to some players, and I say some students, is them winning a match and then like trash talking the other team, did this on the other. And I'm like, that's not confidence. To me, that's a weakness, because then if you lose, what's gonna be your reaction to losing? That's my question to somebody that's confident and they're degrading the other team. I'm like, you gotta, confidence is, I know that I'm gonna play hard no matter what. And if I lose, I lose. But I'm gonna then learn from how I lost. I'm gonna look at the film. If I could ask questions to the other team, say, hey, how'd y'all do that? Or what was your, how'd you come up with that attack? And if they tell me, they tell me. If not, that's okay. But I'll either way, I'm gonna watch the film. So it's having that quiet confidence to respect your opponent, but also better respect the people that is on your team. And then understanding, like I said, the understanding of empathy, where that emotional challenge is that when you could look at your teammates, you look at your coaches and people that you're around every day, looking at them to see if they're doing okay. Not assuming they're in the right state of mind as yourself, because when it comes into the games, some players might be in a bad mindset where as soon as they make a mistake, they're going in on themselves. I'm terrible, I'm garbage. I've heard all different phrases like I'm dog water and all that. And I'm like, hold up, we don't want to lose you. Why are you calling yourself that? And so teaching players how to recognize that, and kind of how to talk their teammates off the ledge, where they don't go down that path of, putting themselves in a negative state of mind because they made one mistake, or they might've made a whole bunch of mistakes, but it's okay. This is, you're playing against another team. they're being competitive. We're trying to be competitive. But now this is a learning lesson to not, beat yourself up, but just, what, you make a mistake is just a chance to get better. Just think about it like that. And then finding out who the leaders are on your roster. Like I said, finding out my team captain, watching him play when I was hovering, it came up within a week. It wasn't like I was looking for team captains for every team, but I was like, I wasn't going to force it. I wanted to make it a natural thing. So as I hovered behind all the chairs from all the games that we competed in, from League of Legends to Call of Duty to Rocket League to Overwatch. I'm trying to think what else we had. We had Rainbow Six Siege that year too, my first year. And so hovering behind all of them, I was like, it's going to pop out. That player is going to pop out either from their gameplay and their communication all in together and how they talk to one another. I paid attention to how they talk to each other. And so then every team that I eventually picked the captain or team captain for or team manager for, there was that person that talked to everybody, that can communicate it to the players, no matter if they were highly ranked or were low ranked, it didn't matter. That player understood what their role meant for the team. And to then say to them as myself, hey, I would like to ask you if you want to be the team manager or the team captain or team manager. And some said yes, some said no, but it wasn't too many no's. It was most of them say yes. And I explained why and how this is what you got to continue to do. Because if you do it already, you just got to just keep reinforcing it because you're going to keep the team together. You do a lot of the things that all the players need to do well, communicate, your mechanics, when you set up when you render your keys, make sure you bind your keys to all the mechanics that you need for the game to make you the best player you are. You have all that down. You do that every day. You warm up first, so I paid attention on that. And that's like, this is why now that you're the captain of the team and helping us stay at the top level. And then obviously I'll step in when there's something I got to address with the team that is like a little bit more than what you can do as a player. So I'm there for that too. And that's how we support each other to help each other get better, basically.
Ahman, does your school have any type of scholarship programs, or is there a school that does have a scholarship program that you know of that you want to shout out?
Yeah, so Nebraska definitely has a scholarship program. They have right now, I believe it's 5 partial scholarships that we're handing out, and most schools do, which is amazing. My good friend Doc Haskell up at Boise State, they have full rides. Other colleges, I believe Jay, the director of esports at Grand Canyon University, they have full rides down there too. And a lot of schools do. A lot more schools than us have full ride scholarships. I believe Northwoods does as well. Michigan State probably does as well. A few of the Big Ten schools too. And so, yeah, it's been around. I say scholarships probably been handing out for almost 10 years now. And Nebraska, we're getting on the train now, but right now we only have 5 partials.
Transitioning kind of to a different part of your resume, what's it like working in esports entertainment?
Oh man, it's fun. It's so fun because that was what, after a while I started to realize that with traditional sports, watching a game, if it was football, it was baseball, it's basketball, not only seeing the players compete in the game, I was also paying attention to the commentators and how they educated me on the game I was watching in terms of the players' names, backstories about the players, the coaches, if they win this game, what this means to this team. It'll be them going to the playoffs or going to the Super Bowl or the championship. And I was like, wow, this is, so when you're a commentator, you got a lot of control on obviously how the audience processes the game they're watching. Obviously, if somebody puts the TV on mute, that's a whole different thing. You don't know that as a commentator, but you got to, that was my dad. He would eventually get sick and tired of hearing the commentators talk, so he would mute the TV. And those are my games because he got tired of them talking bad about me. So as a parent, he's like, I'm not listening to this nonsense. but as a fan, when you watch a game, and mostly obviously all for esports, everything is watched on a computer, but regardless of where it is watched on a computer or in person, you're the narrative of the game. as a commentator, or in our world, a shoutcaster. And you got to obviously basics. You got to know the game. You got to know the mechanics, the game theory, the macro play, the micro play, the strategy they're using for whatever game. If it's a fighting game where they know if they use a person, I'll say like for Tekken, for example, because that's one of my favorite fighting games and I play it a lot. And you got a character like Eddie Gordo, the Capoeira fighter that is all over the place. He can hit low, hit high, but does have some weaknesses. So if you know that about them, you could call that out and you could explain that why and when and where for an audience member listening will give them the whole insight on a character they maybe not knowing about at all, or if it's a experienced fan where they play the game and they're like, oh man, I didn't know that about Eddie Gordo, or I didn't know that about Brian Fury in that game. And so then that commentator gains I say credits or respect from that fan watching the game, either on the computer or in person. So when I got going, when I got I got a couple chance early, probably like within the last 10 years of casting. And I think my first cast was it was a Halo tournament and then a Madden event, like a month later. And they're both happened in New York City at the Microsoft store off of Fifth Avenue in downtown Manhattan. And I was just I was a little high. I was so excited. I was like talking so fast and I was sweating so much. And I was actually with Alex Golden Boy Mendez. And so being with him, and I knew him, like I don't, and it was cool was the fact that he was like, really, you know, I'm like, yeah, man, I watch, you know, I'm on Twitch. I go to my Xbox Game Pass and I go to my Xbox Live and I watch all the videos when they have tournaments, or I go to the websites of the Halo Championships or Call of Duty Championships. So I'm in it, you know, and a lot of people just think I'm not because of where my profession, where I came from, you know, being in NFL, people think, you know, a lot of people felt like or thought that I was putting myself above all of them. And I'm like, no, I'm a human being, same level. I treat everybody the same. And I'm like looking at what I saw before I started commentating. I'm like, these guys and girls, they are somewhere where I want to be. If I could have been a professional esports player on top of a professional, you know, athlete, I would have done it. But get the chance to try to commentate him. So it's a lot of respect because I understand the processes to be that good. You know, how much training they got to put in to be the best Halo player, to be the best Call of Duty player, Madden player, 2K, Street Fighter player. It's a lot of time. And they sacrifice time, you know, away from friends, away from family, away from sometimes their jobs because they got to travel, just like I had to do with football. So it's all respect to everybody in that industry of playing. And then behind the scenes too, you know, the cameramen and women that work the EQ board for the audio to work, the picture to be in the camera to be in the right spot to make us commentators look good or make the competitors in their game look good. So I was like, this is exactly what I grew up in, being a football player. This is a team environment. So I'm going to respect everybody around me because we work together in unison. Everything looks good and sounds good. So, you know, so it was just I remember that, like I said, I was super excited. I was a little nervous, talking fast, but every time I got on camera, so what, you know, I got better. And it was just like football. Okay. I wasn't great at it when I was 5, but every time I went out on the football field, if I was with my friends or in practice, I got a little bit better and a little bit better, you know. And then now people know me, you know, they know, oh man, he could shoutcast League, he could shoutcast Street Fighter or Tekken or Dota or Madden or 2K, MLB to show whatever game is up. We could Ahman knows, you know, he could, and I'm kind of been that go-to, which is great for me because then I'm always busy doing something and I'm doing something I love to do. So.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for intentionally or unintentionally highlighting the various career options that are available to students in esports as well. As you mentioned, the camera people, the broadcasting, the marketing, all the different sides of it.
Exactly.
But I'll pass it over to Richie for our next question.
Sure, yeah. So our next question is about the students. So for those students sort of looking to follow in your footsteps, Amon, what advice might you have for them if they want to pursue careers in sports, entertainment, or coaching?
I say one, have a lot of patience because I say, yeah, one, have a lot of patience. And then two, make sure you're up to snuff, you up on all the new information, you know, of what your job that you're seeking entails. So you graduate college or if you're in college now, I would suggest applying for internships, with the way they're, I say, broadcasting to the student about, there's not much broadcasting about esports in terms of college. It's all traditional sports. But if you are interested in the esports side of production or the business world, I know at Nebraska and a lot of other colleges, they have a little, like we have a certificate where it's my class, Intro to Esports, and then my co-coach Ryan Tan's class, Video Games and Society, and then audio production class with Alan Eno, who's another faculty member at the College of Journalism and Mass Communication. So those three classes will get you a certificate to say, okay, if you want to pursue something in the video game world or the esports world industry, you have that certificate that you could show to people and be like, oh, you got some experience to be behind or in front of a camera. And so with that also brings in the skills that you learn to be a commentator in traditional sports, all the studying, the covering the team, how you look up and make sure you know all the information about the players and the coaches and the organizations. So all that is the same. But for all the categories like what I see on your screen right here, all of that starts, some people don't realize, at a younger age. Like for me, I started working with hardware when I was 5 years old, and then the software came in where, I got a Nintendo or I got the software and the hardware, and I'm the one plugging it up to my TV. So that's basic IT skills right there. I'm putting the red, the yellow, and the white little audio cables in the back of the TV. That was back in the 80s. And then everything switched. It went from those 3 wires to 2 wires, then to HDMI now. And so those skills, I'm never going to forget those because I'm like, I got to know how to plug up my Xbox or my PlayStation or my Switch or even my VCR, or a DVD player today, And so then another little avenue that is real, this list, like, it's just awesome. It's the fact that when Twitch came into existence in 2011, 2012, it brought in things that kids didn't realize they were doing. Like they were putting on their own mini productions and creating their own names and branding, so that they're creating their names, which is the brand. Like, who are you? When you tune into the channel, what are we supposed to call you, or what logo is going to represent you? And I'm saying to myself, like, wow, this is just pure it's promoting entrepreneurship. Because now you got 13, 14, 15, 16, and on up year-olds that come home from school and they're going to sit and play, League of Legends with an audience, and they got their name. They went either did it at school or did it at home on their mom and dad's computer. They created a graphic design to put their logo. So it's given them, the esports, the video game world is like so practical, where you're learning stuff on the go and you don't realize you're even learning it. And that's how, for me, I learned a lot, because when I would be on a production, I'd be on a cast, I'm watching everybody. I did the same thing in football. I will watch all the other positions practice. I'll watch the quarterbacks practice over there, the linemen over there, the defensive linemen, linebackers, safeties, wide receivers. And then, so I was doing the same thing. I'm watching the cameramen and women do stuff. I'm watching the other shoutcaster with me if they're taking notes or if they're writing stuff down. I'm like, hey, what you doing over there? Oh, I'm just getting ready for the next segment. I'm on my computer looking up, what high school, the head coach went to, because I knew they were a Dota player back then. So it's like, oh, okay. So it's just kind of the same things that you learn on the way, because if those people are doing it then, and they got a job, they're like, okay, then those are things I need to be doing to make sure that I'm in the space as well, and that I know this, and not just going off. I can't just play the game and think I know everything. I got to make sure I'm always learning these different areas. And for all the categories you have up here, I say then the next thing, if you find which of the categories up there or not up there, that is what becomes your passion. For me, when I look at this, all of this is part of my passion. I say, but the biggest things, I'm not sure if it's directly up here, which is okay. It's not a bad thing, but it's all of this is really involves, because every group, if you work in the hardware area to the software, media, operations, all that, you're working with 2 or 3 other people. So that means you got to have great communication skills. That means you're working on a small team. So even if you're not on the League of Legends team, you're working on the production for the League of Legends tournament. You might be in the media department. So you got a manager. If you're not the manager or director, you're working with 2 or 3 other people to get the media out there, from the graphics on the overlay to then talking with marketing, because all the graphics are going to go straight to marketing to promote the event, to then put it on social media, put it on the website, put it on whatever app you have where you're showing that this event is coming up and this is where you can sign up and buy tickets for. So you got to collaborate with the marketing department, the events area persons as well. So it's all teamwork, working in all these areas constantly. And if you don't have those basic skills, you're not going to be able to stay in it long, or you will not know how to really communicate the proper way. But if you do, then you'll always have opportunities coming down for you, because people will be like, hey, I worked with so and so, they did a good job in working audio and observing the screen or what have you. And then you're always going to get callbacks. And that's kind of how it's been for me. Once I've done one event, somebody referred me to somebody else. And on top of that, with my already known background, it makes it kind of an easy decision, man. Like, man, he doesn't, he's a pro football player, but he's doing this now. And it's like, so a lot of them, people understand it, like, man, he has a work ethic. He's going to come here. It's going to be about the business. And then once they meet me, they're like, man, you're awesome. And also even more fun to work with, because, I'm down to earth, and I show people that through my actions and my words. And it's not nothing it's not an act. It's just, this is who I am, because I want to, where I understand that, like we started this conversation, I know that we all have our separate lives. We've got either good things going on or bad things going on. But at the end of the day, we just want to be around in an environment around like-minded people that love to do what we're doing, whatever the job is, and have fun doing it at the end of the day, and then come away with a successful event, and then get ready for the next one, and then have fun at the same time.
Very well said. Very well said. And that kind of leads us, keeping that in mind, to our last question. Why do you think schools today, K-12 and beyond, should support their students' love for gaming?
Oh, man. One reason is because now it's another option. Ever since I got into what I've been doing now, I'm like, man, if this was the time for me as a teenager, so I'm 16-year-old of mine, it's like, I'm playing football, I'm running track, and I'm going to try to be on the esports team playing Madden or Call of Duty or something. I'm like covering, so I would cover traditional sports and esports. I'm like, man, because I could do that. I mean, I remember at Lakeland, it was COVID year. And of course, I had an influx of players because all the traditional sports were canceled because of the non-contact that was going on, the non-contact rules that was put down on the US and the world. And so I had all these football players, basketball players, baseball players, women's soccer players, softball girls that were wanting to play something. And I say, I got a game for you. I say, if you like, here's all your sports games. We could play your game. And then I was starting to, hear from everybody, oh yeah, I play Rocket League. I play Call of Duty. I'm like, okay. So I had a ton of athletes picking their games. I'm like, just pick the game and let me know, and you be on the team. But they're like, the interesting part was they didn't know, they still didn't understand, like, how's practice going to work? I was like, how's practice work when you're playing soccer? It's no different. We got to warm up. We're going to have meetings. We're going to break down film. We're going to use the mechanics. We're not just playing for fun. I said, no, we'll have those days when we need to take a break. But right now, when you come into practice, it's practice. It's just like football practice. That means we're going to warm up. We're going to talk about what we want to get done today. And then we're going to go through the certain drills to help us get through that process. Same thing with Call of Duty. You jump on before you start pressing buttons. We're going to have a team meeting about how the last game went or how this season is going to go. Then after that, I'll say you're excused. Go into your warm up for at least 20 to 30 minutes. After that 20 to 30 minutes of warm up, we're going to start getting to some team scrimmages against each other. And then if I organize out a team, another team from another college scrimmage, we got that set up. We're going to be scrimmaging in an hour. So get yourself ready to go. We're going to be playing in a live action game, or not live action game, but a game against another team that's going to help us get better. So, and they're just like, what? I'm like, yeah, this is not just come in here, have fun. This is legit competition. This is stuff that what I've always thought of is like, as a kid, it's like, man, and so when it came to fruition, I was like, man, I wish I was 20 years younger because I would have been playing football on the football field, but then Madden on the console or the computer or one of the other computer games like League of Legends or Valorant. So I would have been an esports and a traditional sports athlete for sure. I would not have walked away from having that opportunity at the collegiate level to do that. And so that's number one. Then I say just with students knowing just on the other same side of knowing this is another option, it's like, because there's a group of people, students, I say people, it's students and people that are kind of sometimes what they can do is kind of predetermined, because of an ailment or, they can't do certain things. So now that demographic of kids, they have these opportunities now. People that are born with an ailment where they can't walk or they're not, mobile as much, with their lower body, but now they can use their arms and legs or arms and their brain more and still be able to compete at a computer game, at a console game, because all is needed, obviously, is your mind for thinking, but then your hands and arms. And even then, if you have a deformity, you have Xbox that's created adaptive controllers. So it's like the esports world, the video game world has been around so long and obviously has a ton of smart people in it that most of the times do the right thing when they do something cool. They have been around long enough. It's like, what, we got to make this game or this competition or this industry adaptive for everybody, because no matter your background, you should be able to thrive in this. So if they're able to make a controller for somebody that doesn't have a hand or doesn't have a leg or arms, then you're in the right industry, because we make sure we push in all the values of what we've talked about for the industry for everybody. We knew that coming into this industry that women gamers from professional level down to the scholastic level, there was a shortage of, and that number has grown every year since I've been in the industry. People of marginal backgrounds as well. Percentage has risen every year. And so they're making everything welcoming to everybody background. And so then a kid could come in here and not feel that he or she is being judged on the way they look, on how tall they are or whatever. They could come in here and just be themselves and compete and have fun, go on Twitch and be themselves. They have all the categories that's represented. And I say that's the one thing traditional sports can take from esports, because esports already has an understanding as this is all inclusive. This is for everybody. There's going to try to be no gatekeeping going on, and let everybody in because they deserve it. Now, if somebody doesn't know the experience or know how to do something, then okay, tell them, say, hey, look, you're kind of not experienced, but this is not a bad thing. You could still go to school, or we could teach you this and you can learn this and then come back later. But, if there's just you can't do this, you got to go another direction type of thing. So you might have a change of direction, but you're still in the same kind of space working and living out your dreams. So that's another part of like telling kids in the high school level and the college level what avenues you have for yourself in the esports industry, in the video game world. I mean, because like I said, it's really up to you. Once you learn your skills, you know where you want to go, then it's really up to you how far that's going to be. Because then, as long as you put yourself out there, because I do that, I reach out to my friends that I know, like, us talking, Peter, in Vegas, I'm going to be always trying to find something to do. And I know that from my experience, it's a very interesting, I have a very interesting story that I could tell everybody, because the question is always going to be asked to me is, why are you doing this? Like, you don't have to be doing this. Why are you in our industry? I'm like, because I love it, and to me, I've learned how to take something, like I said, I learned how to process stuff and get it to where I understand it and how I can move around in the space. And so I knew that, okay, once I found out I like commentating, I like to talk about the games that I played. And then also it was like, I play these games anyway, so that's easy. I was like, so then I could just move on to now, then, you know what, let's plan out a tournament. Or, you know what, I could be a teacher, because I could teach the fundamentals of teamwork and gaming and everything else that is behind it, from business management to promotions and marketing. I get all that, because that's where an industry working in and playing in the NFL, that's one thing that I saw every day. There was companies promoting me or me promoting them for some, money in my pocket, or the, NIL, stuff like that, name, image, and likeness, because of what I was representing as a Green Bay Packer, as an NFL player, as a football player, stuff like that. So I'm like, man, if it just takes that, then you know what? I'm gonna make sure I know all what I can know. So then when a company sends me an email or wants me to do something like this, talk on a panel, then you know what? I'm ready for it, and I know the topics, and I have the experience to talk about what I've been through, or what I've seen, and what I've learned, and what I've taught people, in being in my classes or being on my esports teams.
Thank you, Ahman. And very, very, very last follow-up question to that.
Yeah,
if that's the why schools today should support their students' love for gaming, what do you think is the how? How can schools and school leaders today support their students' love for gaming? What can they do?
What they can do, one how they could do it is getting a faculty member on staff in the school first, and having a faculty member, even if they're not as adept, like they don't have all the experience, at least they know one thing, like they know tech. Just know that first. If they know how to turn on a computer, update a driver, that's part of the way of getting an esports program started. So having that faculty member on staff, the more the merrier in terms of experience. But if they have zero experience, then that teacher is going to learn along the way, along with the students, and they might get a group of students that'll say, "Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, we know how to do this. We can help you learn this." Because the esports competition level, or I would say the esports competitors, they're to a point where we know what's going on. You know what? We'll help you out. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I mean, you don't know it, no big deal. We know how to plug up the computers, because because they so thriving to play. They want to play. They're so hungry, not thriving. They're so hungry. They want to compete against other high schools in their neighborhood, because they know kids that go to the high schools that have an esports team already, and they want to go play against them in Rocket League or Call of Duty or Super Smash Brothers. So they'll help out. They'll say, "Yeah, I'll figure it out," or they'll say, "You know what? We don't know either. Let's just figure it out together." And that's how I say cavalier the video game world and esports industry is with everybody that plays a game. We're just, you know what? Let's do it. Maybe we don't have that much experience, but we know what? We'll figure it out along the way. And if we mess up, we just learn something. And that's the beauty of it too. That's what I like, because then that's everybody. It could be kids that are, 10, 11, up to, 20, 25, 30, 40 years old, that are all working together to just play a game or do a tournament or do an event where you have kids, or a class, or develop a class to where you could teach kids how to be in this industry, how how to learn from the industry, and then how to grow and thrive from the industry. So I say that is something where you could have that going on, then I think it'll be good opportunities for kids all over the place.
Absolutely. And a wonderful theme to wrap up our episode. Unfortunately, we are out of time. We want to thank everyone for joining today. Ahman, a huge thank you to you for being our panelist today and sharing your experience with our students and educators.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, and can't wait to do it again.
Awesome. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you again, Ahman. Stay safe. Happy gaming. Till next time.